Hello and welcome to the Forrin Podcast Extra. My name is Mike Bowden and I am recording from Odense in Denmark. These extra episodes are going to take the form of interviews that we will do with different and what we would consider interesting people who have something to say about either being foreign, being a foreigner, living in a different country, or even maybe even being from the country and viewing their own nationality from a kind of objective perspective. Anyway, this first one is an interview with someone I've mentioned on the podcast a couple of times, my colleague who is from England, Stacy. The interview with Stacy is about an hour long, and Stacy talks about his background, his reasons for coming to Denmark, how he sees himself in comparison to maybe other English people, the Danes, me, and, we think it's rather interesting. So, grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee and welcome Stacy. So, Stacy, who are you?
Well, my name's Stacy. No, it's not a girl's name. That's what I say to all my dear students out there. I was born in the mid-60s, and so Stacy was on the cusp of going from a bloke's name to a woman's name, just like John Wayne experienced with his name being Marion for real.
Right. So you sort of see yourself a bit aligned with sort of a John Wayne type?
No, it was the first name. I was going to say Big Daddy Shirley Crabtree, but I don't really see myself as being an overweight northerner either.
And I think, as most of our listener group is probably from Denmark, I think Big Daddy, I think you'd have lost the only 2 or 3 listeners we've got.
But listeners out there, if you get the chance, check out Shirley Crabtree because he was something else.
Yeah, massive wrestler.
Yeah.
So your story then, you were in the 60s, you said you were born.
Yeah.
And where'd you live?
Well, at the time I lived in Norfolk in England.
Which is where?
In East England.
Yeah.
And what's my story? My mother met an American serviceman.
All right.
Who was in the Air Force. We lived in England for 2 years, and then we all moved back to America in Dallas, Texas.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that about
it. Well,
right.
Mike. And that didn't work out, so just me, my mum, and my sister, who was born over there, we moved back to England, back to Norfolk, and and so and from there, what was it? So that was in '75. We came back.
That's when I was born.
Yeah. So we came back especially for your birth, Mike.
Cheers, mate.
And from there we lived there, and I moved around a bit in Norfolk. Lived in Cambridge town, not Gown, and just in case anyone wondered. And then what was it? From there I moved to West England in Cheltenham.
Right.
Well, I'm just kind of babbling really, but
no, West England's good at Cheltenham.
Yeah.
So your schooling, what was that?
My schooling was just your normal run-of-the-mill secondary modern, which then, of course, they started calling it high school at the time.
Right, yeah.
And because having listened to your story on the pod, of course, I am a regular listener and I subscribe as well. I just say that it seems like your story is pretty much like mine, except you were a public school boy and I was just a state school boy. Is that right? Did I understand that?
Yeah. Public school. It's not private school, it's public school. So yeah. But well.
And of course, I came out of school, and as my mate Paul once said years ago, I took the well-trodden path, which was going from school to technical college, basically to get some more exams. And then I thought, I was 18. I thought I'm going to go do some work. So I worked in kitchens. I worked at a holiday camp. I worked with old people. And I was just kind of bumming around really in Cambridge at that time.
Yeah.
And so I started hearing this thing called CSV, which was a voluntary organisation where they'd send you around England or Scotland or anywhere in Britain really. And then you could work with kids or young offenders or handicapped, anyone really. And I kept hearing, all my mates kept saying, oh yeah, I did this up in Glasgow, or I went to Birmingham, or I went to Liverpool. And I thought I could do that, because I'm just bumming around really. And so I said, yeah, I'll do this. Had to go down to London, to your part of the world. Again, I saw you on the street, Mike, and I did wave, but you didn't wave back. But
Londoners, mate, typical Londoners.
Yeah, typical Londoners. And so I got sent to Cheltenham. And I worked with young offenders and kids from socially deprived areas or backgrounds. And I did that for a year. And then I went off and got a job at an old people's home. And then about a year later, this Danish girl appeared. You know where this story is going to lead, don't you, lads?
Yeah, I reckon.
All right, and she was working as part of MS, and I can never remember melancholy Samvirk or something. You can dub in what that is, Mike.
Interpersonal something.
Yeah, and so she was working for this Danish organisation, and she got a job working with these kids that I'd worked with 2 years before, or a year before, however long it was. And we kind of got to know each other because I still knew some of the volunteers. And then one thing led to another. We started going out. We lived in England for 1.5 years together. And there wasn't much because I'd worked at this old people's home and there'd been a lot of changes. So I was getting a bit kind of itchy feet. And we decided we were going to go to Europe and travel around, right, in April 1993. And we had this idea we were going to go to the south of France and pluck grapes, pick grapes off the vine, and then
live like Pat in the south of France.
Yeah, we were waiting to wave to Pat.
Yeah.
And of course, the thing is, there's two things. There aren't many grapes, I found out, in the south of France in April.
Right.
And the other thing was we had to go to a christening in Denmark a couple of weeks in. And like most young people, we had lots of energy and lots of spirit, but we didn't have much money. So after we'd been to Copenhagen and visited friends around, we kind of ran out of dough and didn't really want to go back to England. So we ended up staying in Denmark. So I do have a theory about Danish women and Vikings. Now, and it all works out because, Mike, you're in the same boat, mate.
Yeah.
1,000 years ago, Danish men would get themselves over to England and nick all the women.
Yeah.
And now it seems to be that Danish women go over and nick the men. And when you meet an Englishman or a British person in Denmark, you usually say, "What's your name?" I don't need to ask the next question because it'll say it was love or it was a woman or
that's
whatever.
right. Yeah.
And then, of course, you start talking about, do you like football? What's your language like? Do you speak Danish? Because it's an interesting language to learn. And where are you from, kind of thing. There's those kind of things. I remember when I first met you, I'm sure I must have said the same. Mike.
Yeah, no, I probably did the same thing as well. Yeah.
So that's the Viking woman theory. And we were going to travel around Europe, but of course, it didn't work out. And the great thing in the early 90s there was that you could, well, first of all, my wife always says, I still say I have to pay for your trip back if it doesn't work out. So she had to sign this piece of paper saying if it didn't work out, she'd pay the boat fare back. But luckily it did work out, and I'm still with the same Mrs. Hello, Ula, how you doing? And
hello, Ula.
Yes, it's always nice just to sort of like say. Now the thing is, when we were going to come to Denmark, just to be there for this christening, really.
Yeah.
My mate Nige said, "Oh, don't worry if you go to Denmark, mate, and that because they all speak English." Yeah. So you'll be fine. And you think, yeah, that's great. But the thing is, when you go to a family party, they don't all speak English when they're sitting together, even though they're very friendly and they're interested in British people. They like English and British people in Denmark. And of course, they like to try their English on you as well. But that's a different thing. But I found out that, well, because I'm also really nosy, so I really wanted to find out, what are they talking about? So I tried to learn Danish as quickly as possible. I've known blokes over here, and I'm sure you have as well, Mike, that have said, well, I live in a big city, everyone speaks English, I can get by.
Yeah, that's it. You don't really need it there. Don't need the language.
But I mean, I didn't want to just get by, I wanted to get on.
Yeah.
Because this is one thing about Denmark, the opportunities. Now, Mike, I heard your story. You did a GIF as well, right?
Yeah, I did that GIF course, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to boast, but I was actually seen. I remember there was the teachers said I was an experiment. I was the first Englishman to try this in Odense.
All right.
The course there for foreigners. So, and I really got on with it. I was lucky because I was a bit older and I was reading lots of newspapers and stuff. And so
you was in, or you were reading lots? Did you say?
I was reading.
Oh, right, reading. So GIF, you were doing GIF.
Yeah.
And you were sort of the test subject for GIF.
I was the test subject as an Englishman because there were lots of people. The idea of GIF, as you know yourself, Mike, loads of people are coming from all over the world to Denmark, and they just had to be kind of mashed through the Danish education system.
Yeah.
So then, of course, they had Danish papers. There were lots of people from Somalia. There were Palestinians. There was a few from Eastern Europe, and I'm just trying to think. There's a few from Turkey and Iraqis and stuff. It was great. We were one big happy family, and of course, I got on and I was advised, well, go and do what you want. One thing about Denmark, which is great, is that this opportunity is there to go and get educated.
Yeah.
And I thought,
it's free.
And I didn't even think about the freedom. I just thought, because I thought I'd blown my chance when I was 18. And I think the situation in England is different now that mature students have got more of a chance. So I went to university. And I went there and I studied English. And
that's where we first met, Stacy.
That's where we first met.
I
thought it was down the pub, Mike, but of course I don't drink, so I wouldn't know.
No.
Absolutely. But so university, and okay, another reason why I took English, I've got a list of things here. Because I've always liked English.
Stacey's made notes, by the way.
I have made notes.
This is pretty hardcore.
I mean, it's a whole book of them, actually. But see, because sometimes you hear people say, "Oh, English teacher, that must be easy for you."
Yeah, classic.
It's a classic, but all right, then go and do it.
Yeah.
All right, do it then. Okay.
Well, it's like saying every Dane can be a Danish teacher.
Yeah.
Which isn't true either, is it?
Oh, I don't know. They taught me a few. Well, they certainly corrected me enough. Yeah, but they're lovely people, the Danes. I mean, because,
mostly, yeah.
Right,
I'm joking, everyone.
Of course.
Yes.
And So I had all this stuff, and I just thought I'd get on, and then luckily VUC got in touch with me and said, we want to invest in you, and that's the best thing I've ever experienced, and I'm sure that they kind of think, well, he's not the worst bloke in the house.
No.
Okay, but I mean, I like it, and I must admit, there's sometimes when I wake up and on a Saturday, for example, I think I'm going to go out and just walk the streets of this town and just speak a bit of Danish to people. It's great. And I still get that kind of spice and energy from living here.
Right.
I think, I like it. I think it's good. And if we talk about the food, I found the food was very similar to English food, except for one day, they said, here's your food. I went, oh, that's nice. There was meat, because I do still eat meat. Sorry about that, Patrick. I understand you're a vegan, but that's fair.
Is Pat a vegan?
Like, were you vegan or vegetarian?
I don't think he's ever mentioned it before. Yeah.
Well, if I've made a mistake, I'll get back to you.
He is vegan.
Okay,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so there was spuds, meat and gravy on my plate. And I thought, well, where's the veg? And they said, we've got this thing called Asia. Now, I don't know what they are in English.
I've got no idea either.
No, they're kind of like this yellow fruity thing.
Yeah.
And they bring it out of a jar and it's pickled. And I said, no, you're all right. Now, for the Christmas thing, Mike, you mentioned the crisps.
Yeah.
I do remember this. And I thought, this is most unusual. I thought, because crisps in my world and in your world is a snack.
Yeah.
You would not eat it with your roasters and gravy.
Well, I mean, if you're in a pub and a pint, a pack of crisps and a sandwich, that's perfectly acceptable. And you can also, in some sort of layers of society, you can also whack some crisps in between two slices of buttered bread.
Oh,
and
I gave up butter, mate, to try and cut down a bit on but I'm with you, a crisp sandwich.
So, but yeah, you're right. As a part of a kind of a main meal,
and a nice meal.
Yeah, and a nice meal like crisps. No.
No. All right, we're only talking salt and vinegar. We're not talking about Wotsits. No, salt crisps.
Yeah, salted crisps.
Yeah, not Wotsits or Monster Munch, of course. And Mike, I was interested in your ideas about Christmas.
Right.
Okay, because you're only a 24th man, right? We celebrate the 24th.
Yeah.
And to the immense delight of my kids, the 25th as well.
Right.
Yeah. So.
What do they like about the 25th?
Presents.
But they get them on the 24th.
And the 25th. Okay,
but if you took away the presents on the 25th and opened, dance around the tree on the 24th, opened all your presents there,
you see,
would the 25th have anything for them?
You're pushing me down avenues I don't want to traverse.
But I mean, it's like, it's almost like the confirmation, isn't it? The Danish confirmation. If you took away, like, the fact that they got loads of presents and loads of money, would like anybody really want to do it.
What are your ideas about non-formations then, Mike?
Yeah, fine.
You're fine with non-formations?
Yeah, I'd I obviously have my own opinions about God and Jesus.
Yeah.
But I was maybe a bit of an idiot in the old days where when I had my kids, I sort of tried to enforce those opinions. I think, I don't mind saying it on the podcast. I actually said to my wife at the time, either we get married in the church or we have our kids christened, future kids, but not both. And she chose the church and regretted it. But I've said to my kids their whole life, if you want to be christened, if you want to, then or confirmed, then we'll do it. Like, I won't sort of try and put my whatever I think.
Yeah.
And the kids have chosen it, and fine. But if they said to me, I want the party, I want the money, I want the food, but I don't want to do the church, I'll go all right then.
Oh, right. I mean, to be honest, our kids are christened and confirmed, and that's just because it's a Danish tradition.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you were confirmed in England.
No, I wasn't. No. I used to go to Sunday school.
Yeah.
But for me, as I think, I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast or not, but for me, being confirmed, that was something that I remember. There was a Catholic school in my area.
Yeah.
That was what the Catholics did.
Yeah.
So I never sort of, what's it called? Coupled it. I never sort of in connection with Christianity. I never put it into connection with Christianity. I thought that was a Catholic thing getting confirmed. So when I came here and everyone's getting confirmed, but they're sort of Protestant Christian, I thought that was a bit weird. I didn't really understand it.
Yeah, and people say to me, well, what did you get for your confirmation all those years ago, Stacy? And I'd say, what? I was doing my paper round, mate.
That's it.
So
I was down the pub, mate.
I was down the pub, paper round, and then
that's it.
The pub,
13, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, there you go. So,
is there anything more before I can ask you any questions?
Oh, I've got a couple more things. Are you going to ask questions as
well?
Yeah,
of course. I think that's the very nature of an interview, mate.
Yeah, I just thought it was me talking.
Yeah, I mean, it is so far, yeah.
And that's why you've been yawning so much, I see. Yeah. Just let me have a look here. Oh, yes, and this is the last thing I want to talk about. I have now become a Danish citizen, and it was on the 8th of September 2022. And
so you're a year and a bit into it.
Yeah. And it's actually my wedding anniversary.
Oh.
But also what happened was, those of you who are royal, the last podcast that was on, will remember that this is the day that Queen Elizabeth II died. Now,
well, that is pretty symbolic. You give up your citizenship. You trade your passport for a Danish one, and the Queen, that's it. That was the final. That was the final domino, mate.
Mike, I didn't want to have to say it, but I did really. I would just say that I went into the town hall at 4:00. And then, of course, you've mentioned what you have to do to become a Danish citizen in the podcast before, if I remember correctly. But I went in and I got the papers and shook hands with the guy and everything.
Yeah.
4:30 I came out. The clock bell rang. The cathedral bell was ringing. The Queen had died.
Wow.
Okay. I would say that...
It's your fault, Stacy. You killed Liz, mate.
Well, to be honest with you, Mike, I have heard this mentioned by other people. But I would say, no, it wasn't that. It was her way of saying, you have my blessing. Okay?
Yeah.
So, but yes, family parties and stuff and everything. All right then, Mike, on you go, mate.
That was a long intro, mate. That was a long run-up.
I didn't realise it was an intro. I just thought you wanted me to say a few things.
Yeah, I just wanted to say who you are and why you came to Denmark.
Well, all right, okay.
But as this is a podcast called Forrin, and foreigner in it and all that. So,
am I foreigner? Yeah, no, I'm an Englishman.
Well, that's exactly, and that's what I was sort of. Do you ever feel foreign? Yeah.
Well,
do you feel like a foreigner?
Do I feel like a foreigner? Not really, because I've just really moved a couple of 100 miles away from one place to another. It's
right.
Like the changes have been small. It's like when John Travolta in Pulp Fiction says it's just the little things.
Yeah.
You remember that from when he's going, like, he's talking to Jules in the car there, Samuel L. Jackson. It's just the little things. And I think it's just the little things like, when we first came to Denmark, or when I first came to Denmark, shops would shut on a Saturday. at about 12 o'clock.
Yeah, that's weird. That was
They
crazy.
don't do it anymore.
Also in Copenhagen, they used to do it like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I think this is like a major city, and it's closed. Like, what are you supposed to do with your life?
And you think, oh, you're supposed to just hang out at home and chill out, and just stress-free environment. But then again, I thought, well, I fancy going out and buying some beers.
Yeah.
So, but of course, you had to go to the pub for that.
Mm.
So that's all right. I'm in your hands now then, Mike.
So, but there's no time. I mean, the things I mentioned, as you said, you've listened to the podcast, but for those of you who are maybe just listening to this because Stacey's on it, I'm sure you're going to pull in people from near and far to listen to you. But things I've mentioned, like, where as soon as people catch on, you've got an accent, then they'll ask you where you're from. That's not a Danish accent. And then you have to go through the whole kind of, what I would call a rigmarole of, I came here in 19, whatever, and I've done this and I've done that. And all of a sudden, you're kind of, in a way, your sort of social credit at whatever gathering becomes the fact that you were just born in a different country, where everybody else is more kind of like what they've done, who they are, maybe where they work, what they've studied or whatever. And again, as you said, I'm an English teacher. Well, of course you are, because you're from England. Yeah. So again, it's almost like everything comes down to the fact that you're English just by birth, and it's nothing that you've really done yourself, is it? You were just born there, raised there, and happened to move here.
You see, because I heard what you said on the podcast about that, Mike, and maybe at the start, I think I don't feel like that. I just feel like I'm moving around and doing my thing, really. And I know I've got an English accent when I speak Danish, but I think people don't really care. I think...
No, I don't think they care. No, as I said, I think when people ask me, it's not because, like, there's any kind of problem with it. I think it's a genuine interest.
Yeah, but I don't really get people asking me where I'm from anymore.
Do you not?
And I certainly don't think it's because I suddenly speak fluent, accent-free Danish.
No, I get it all the time still. Every time I meet... Yeah.
Really? I'm very surprised.
I was at a social gathering here at the school. One of our colleagues, he had his silver wedding anniversary. Yeah. And I spoke to about 4-5 different sort of people as you sort of mingle around. And I told the same story 4 or 5 times.
Really?
Yeah, that's not a Danish accent, is it? No. Where's it from? It's from London. Ah, London. Yeah. What are you doing here? Boom, boom. Okay. You don't get it, mate.
No, I mean, no, I don't know. No. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because what I say is so boring. They think, God, just hope he soon buckles off something. I can talk to Mike about him coming from England.
So, but if you don't feel foreign, then, I mean, maybe this is, you can disagree with this kind of leap that I'm making. Mm-hmm. But then do you not feel English or British?
Well, you see...
Or what is that to you? What does that mean to you to be English or British? What does it mean? Do you make that distinction? Are you British or are you English?
Well, I'm English.
Right. What's the difference to you?
See, these are good questions you're coming with, but
Cheers,
I expected this as well.
Yeah.
I expected if I talked enough, maybe for 2 or 3 hours, that I wouldn't be getting these good questions for you, mate.
I would just edit it out 2.5 hours of it, mate, and put this in.
I have a one-spot question for this complete stranger. Yeah. Right. Well, it's because, you see, English people don't really have an identity as English. What I mean is, it's like if you go to Scotland, they've got kilts and they've got bagpipes. I mean, I know this is very cliched, and the Loch Ness Monster and whiskey. When you go to Wales, and I know these are real cliches. These are real cliches about other British people. Wales, they like to sing. They've got the rugby, and then of course you've got the whole. I'm not really going to go into the Irish question, but you've got,
yeah.
And then you come to England and you think, if you say to English, what, we drink tea. Well, so do Scots, so do the Welsh and the Northern Irish. And I'm trying to keep UK here. And so what do you like? You like football. So I remember reading years ago in The Independent, I think it was, about what is it about English, being English?
Yeah.
And is it because we don't really have a distinct folk song as such? We have folk-ese.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what would you say? Greensleeves is the English song.
My dad used to play that on the flute when I was a kid.
Yeah. What was he, Henry VIII? Yeah, exactly. And I'm not, sorry, Mike's dad, I'm only laughing about. Right.
Yeah, he listens, by the way.
I know he does.
Pat. I'd called you Pat. Sorry, Stacy.
You can call me Pat if you like. He sounds like a nice guy. Right. So what is it to be English?
Yeah. To you. Like,
funny, being funny. All right. Being sporty.
Yeah.
As in bookies.
You mean bookie? You mean like betting?
Yeah.
Right.
And then again, of course, I know lots of people who don't bet, who don't like football,
Who aren't funny.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Already, you've cut me down to size.
No, but again, this is what you think.
Absolutely.
So just because there are exceptions to that doesn't mean that what you're saying is obviously like wrong. This is what it means to you.
Yeah. So in these things, and I think English people, the basic of an English person, and of course this applies to British people as well, they are friendly, they are funny, but again, this is just how I've experienced people, because I find Danes are friendly, I find Danes funny. I like Danish people, and they seem to like me. Otherwise, they're good at
covering
masking.
It up.
Yeah, very much so. As soon as I wonder why they kind of always clap when I leave a room. So I just thought, maybe they like me a bit.
That's the students make it such a good teacher, isn't it?
Yeah, bye, mate. So do I feel English? I mean, I've been here 30 years. So...
which is obviously longer than you lived in the UK?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because I'm only, 56.
Right, yeah.
So
you've also crossed the threshold like I just have here in September.
Okay, well
been here longer now than I lived in the UK for.
Oh, dear.
That's it.
So yeah.
But the reason I ask you that is because if you say you don't feel foreign, but you feel English, then what makes English to you exclusive from Danish?
I think, and this is something I've thought about for a while, I think now, of course, I'm generalising again because we are always generalising.
Yeah.
You never find an English quarter. It seems like
when you mean quarter, you mean like area where people live.
Yeah, like for example, it seemed to be the Irish would hang out together, or where I lived, all the Scots would hang out together.
Yeah.
Okay, the Welsh, they don't really travel, or I never really met many Welsh people. Whereas English people, maybe that's it. They just kind of spread. There isn't sort of like a great diaspora, isn't it? Diaspora? The Irish diaspora, where the Irish all went to New York.
All right, yeah.
You know?
New word for me, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a lovely word.
Yeah, it sounds great.
And I might be... No. Anyway.
Doesn't matter. We'll say it's diaspora for now. Now we know what it means. It means a flock of people going into the same place out in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it seems to be English people that just get on. I mean, I was lucky. I was married to a Dane. I was with a Dane. So it wasn't like there was 85 English people suddenly move into an area. So in that way, we have to project our Englishness as we interpret it, or as we are.
Yeah.
In that way. So maybe we're not foreigners because we just go out and immerse ourselves. Of course, you're going to get lots of emails saying, well, actually, there's 48 of us live in this great tower block.
We wish we got lots of emails. Yeah, we've had one from Pat's mum so far.
I thought you got an Indonesian guy listening.
Yeah, it's a listener. He hasn't sent anything in there.
Okay.
We can actually see where people are in the world. Yeah, we can see where they listen from.
Ooh.
So yeah, an Indonesian listener.
I can get you more listeners.
Yeah, I'm sure you can, mate. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think Englishness is almost like a state of mind in that way.
Yeah. So you don't think there's any sort of traditions? I mean, I suppose maybe another way to ask the same question would be: is there anything that makes you actually proud of the fact that you are from England or English? And what is that?
See, I've never really gone in for the pride thing. I've gone in for the like thing.
So the English football team, you wouldn't like shed a tear if we won the World Cup, like England.
I've shed lots of tears over the English football.
Yeah, so have I.
I've got to say. See, of course, now we're going down in semantics. There's a thing about pride, and there's a thing about liking something a lot, right?
Or you could maybe say, if we're talking sort of in a sort of a social sciences way, there's the difference between maybe a patriot and sort of someone who's like a nationalist, right? You can love your country despite its faults, or you can love your country and think it's better than every other country. And I think patriotism is maybe like loving your country, but you're very aware of all the faults that it has, but you love it anyway. Do you feel that you love your country despite all the faults that you can maybe point out in it?
See, I don't want to be too political, but...
This is a political podcast.
Well, apparently so.
Yeah.
In 93, I wrote this kind of like a list of things.
A manifesto.
No.
I don't want to be too political, but I wrote this manifesto.
I wrote a manifesto. No, I just sort of like how the England that I liked or I loved was being ripped into pieces, right, by a political party. England, in a way, is still, and I think that you've made me remember what I think about England is still a conquered country from the Norman invasion.
Right.
Okay. If you go to Norfolk, you can certainly see the Normans and the Anglo-Saxons. There's no doubt. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Anglo-Saxons are now just farm labourers and stuff, and the Normans are the pearl set.
Yeah.
And so England, in a way, is still a conquered country, in a way that Scotland hasn't been, or Wales hasn't been, in that way by the Normans. And where did the Normans come from? In a way, they came from the Danes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really, the Danes just wanted to come to England so much because they loved it. So they became Normans, especially.
But the answer to the question
about the Normans bit there. Just want to say, I do think England was or is still a conquered country that needs to find its identity. All right, sorry.
Yeah, yes, but again, so the question is, are you proud of being? I mean, would you consider yourself a patriot? You said you wrote this thing in '93 about the country was being torn apart by a political party.
Yeah.
But you said the country that you love, right? Why do you love it? What is it about England that you love?
The people.
So there's nothing about its culture, its cultural output. It's the
culture,
individuals.
Well, the culture comes from the people, right?
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah, it does.
And I know you are a social scientist, and I'm just an English teacher, right? But yeah, it's the people.
Right.
It's the people that make it, and the people are being dossed on by other. I mean, anyone can read the papers and see about what's going on in England now.
Yeah.
Or in Britain,
Yeah.
So, like I say, I'm not here to spout off lots of politics, but I do think people are being treated badly.
Mm-hmm. But does that maybe rub off on you? Do you sort of not? I wouldn't. Obviously, you're not responsible for it.
Yeah.
But does that make you less proud?
It makes me sad.
See, that makes me just it's not about me, but that makes me less proud. It's not like I don't want to tell people anymore that I'm English because of what I don't mind saying it because what Rishi Sunak and the Tory Party and Johnson and everything else has been going on. But I don't really think when people sort of think about as you said, Danes love England, right? Or the English, and so they're talking about how great it is, and I sort of think, well, it's a fucking shithole.
But you see,
know what I mean?
You're looking at it like that.
So the point was that what is going on politically shapes my relationship to the country. Whereas for you, you're saying that you look beyond, in a way, the politics and just concentrate on the people. So it doesn't really matter if there are like children eating toilet paper in the summer holidays because they're starving. You still love England regardless, sort of thing.
No, that's not what I mean at all.
All right.
No, because I'm certainly following your thought there. What I mean is, I'm just kind of, because the essence of an English person, is we're going to get on. You could say it's the old Blitz spirit.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we're going to get on. We'll still do it. And of course, that sounds great for me sitting here in Denmark. I phoned up my mate a while ago. He says, "Oh, we're in house coats now because of the cost of living crisis and the heating and stuff, right?"
Yeah.
And this is just a normal bloke like you and me. It's not someone who's dossing about. And so I thought, gosh, because we are kind of lucky, Mike. I mean, if we wanted to, we could actually walk around a house in t-shirts.
Yeah. I mean, as I've said on the podcast many times, it's by no way that I'm playing any kind of violin. I know just how good I've got it compared to not just people in the UK, but most of the world where we're living with our education and income. We're pretty much top of the pyramid. Yeah. And that's just how it is. And I can't, and won't excuse for it. But so, okay. So in a way, there's no situation you find yourself in Denmark where you kind of maybe feel outside of the sort of community that, Denmark is a very it loves its, the word fellesskab, the community, the fact that it's Danish, and they're kind of, in a way, I mean, obviously not as individuals, but I'm maybe talking more like media, their kind of obsession with reminding people of this sort of community that they're in, that doesn't in turn then make you feel that you're outside of that.
No.
Because you're not, because I think I did mention it quite briefly on the last podcast. I said we could do another podcast on it. The fact that in the news, for example, the population are referred to as Danes.
Yeah.
Where, you're not a Dane, I'm not a Dane. But
I'm a new Dane, I think.
Yeah, you're a new Dane, yeah. But, and we'll get to that in a second. But, why not just say the Danish population? Why refer to everybody as being Danish when people who live here, a lot of people who live here, aren't Danish?
Well, you could say that, and I've thought about this as well, because, I mean, back in England, you can also hear, the Great British Holiday or the Great British Bake Off.
Yeah, the Great British Bake Off, yeah.
In a way, you've still got that going on over there too.
But we would say the Great British Public.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah, so if we are referring to the nation, we wouldn't just say the English. We would,
well, and this
is the population of Great Britain, or again. I mean, I don't want to split hairs with you. It was just a question whether this whole kind of reference to everybody who lives in Denmark as being Danish. For me, I don't like the word because it's a bit sort of exaggerated. I get triggered by it. Yeah, I don't start fuming or going crazy or anything like that. But it kind of, it's almost like, stubbing my toe just a little bit, on it. I think, headlines like, after Corona, now Danes can finally go outside. And I sort of made a joke. Obviously, I'll play it off as a joke. Yeah. Well, when are they going to tell me when I can go outside? Because did you see what I mean? So why is everything about, so no, not why, I'm not asking you that question, but that doesn't affect you at all. You don't sort of feel that, the word for you is a Dane, and the word for me is a Dane, and the word for Ali is a Dane, and the word for someone who, maybe he's lived here for 15 years, come from Bosnia or from Turkey, they're a Dane. Everyone's a Dane. Yeah. That kind of eradicates who you are, though, doesn't it? And just makes you just a part of this sort of homogenous whole.
So you're seeing it as being exclusive. You don't see it as being inclusive.
Yeah, I suppose one thing I asked my students actually, because they sort of see it like that. So I said, okay, if you guys move to Nigeria, would you want to be referred to as being Nigerian, or would you want to be referred to as being Danish, or as as a part of the Nigerian public? And none of them would want to be referred to as Nigerian. Let's just put it that way. And I don't think it's anything to do with the colour of the skin or anything else. Yeah. But when it's put like that, like a contrast, do you see what I mean?
Well, I think,
like, if I lived in Germany, I wouldn't want to be called German. If I lived in Swedish, I want to be called Sweden. It's got nothing to do with Denmark or anything else.
Because I'm seeing what you're saying. I'm hearing what you're saying there. I think it's also how you approach the situation. Yeah. I mean, if all of a sudden you said, I've won £1 billion, I'd like you to go live in, I don't know, in France for 10 years. Yeah. Then at the end of it, I mean, 10 years is a long time. You would start to brush off. See, this is one of the things I think about when you've got racists and they go, all the racist stuff, right? Yeah. But I think when people come to a country, they do start to absorb some of the traits of the country. Yeah. So the racists, they kind of fight and lose a battle, really, because people are going to start to accumulate information from where they are. Yeah,
and you just imitate the things around you, and yeah. I mean, it's a very natural process, right?
So in that way, send me to Nigeria. I'd like the warmth at the moment. It's been freezing.
No, but I just think, if you look in terms of America, for example, America is basically, as everyone knows, loads and loads and loads of different nationalities. Yeah. But they have actually created like an American identity through those different sort of cultures. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? So maybe if I moved to America for 15 years, then I would there is a kind of an American culture. Do you see what I mean? There's an Italian American, and there's maybe the Irish American, and there's all the different sort of people. But there is a sort of thing, there's the onion model. I don't know if a guy called Hofstede and stuff like that. So there are certain things that kind of, if you celebrate the holidays and the famous, all these things, looking them up. Hofstede's onion model is quite interesting. But anyway, that is sort of American in itself. So you can still be sort of Latin American. You can still be Italian American. But separate from that, there is an American. Where in Denmark, it's just your Danish.
Yeah, I think it's also the size of the country. But I do think if you go in anywhere with an open mind and go and say, okay, when I came here, I thought, I'm here now, I might as well get on and see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, 30 years later, when I'm sitting here talking to you about being English or Danish or whatever, kind of like, well, I'm here, really. I don't really...
So you don't actually see yourself as English?
Well, yeah.
Or as Danish?
I am English. I am, in a way... now, I will say to you...
Yeah.
When I
like the fact that your voice, the tone of your voice is now fallen. I like that.
Fallen? You like that, do you?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. I say to you. Yeah, go on.
I say to you now.
Yeah.
Okay. But seriously, when I started the process to become Danish, I looked at the Danish flag with different eyes. Good, positive eyes as well. I kind of thought, I'm going to be part of that.
Yeah.
So, but
what does that?
I'm going to be part.
You're going to have to put more words onto that.
Yeah, I'm going to. It's not very good for a podcast. I'm going to be part of that.
Yeah, part of what, mate? Part what?
With weeping eyes. No, I'm entering the Danishness. So maybe because I've never really thought about it as deeply, but when you actually,
do you think it's like? So sorry to interrupt you, but do you think maybe for me to understand other people, do you think it's almost like a sort of getting married? Like you're living with your girlfriend. You're living with your girlfriend. You love her. You've told her you love her the whole time.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to split you up. You might even have kids with her. But the actual process of getting married and standing there, the ceremony, kind of takes it to maybe a sort of a different level than what it was.
Yeah.
And you think maybe the ceremony of going through doing the test and, as you said, meeting up at the town hall, shaking the hand of the geezer, and the whole official "you are now Danish," that kind of elevated your sort of immigration process to
well, in that way,
is that a good sort of comparison, do you think? Marriage
well, in fact, it flashed across my mind as well. So I'd certainly agree. You suddenly, maybe because you're making an effort, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
or you're doing it in front of people. I think that's all the things where you're sort of declaring your love for someone, like in front of all the people that matter to you.
Yeah, there you go. I mean,
but I wasn't there when you got, so I don't understand that. A, I wasn't there when you got married, and B, I wasn't there when you became Danish.
I did invite you, mate, but we didn't want to.
Got lost in the post.
Lost in the post. Yeah, so I think if you make an effort, then it will pay you back. And maybe that's it. All the time I've been in Denmark, I've been making an effort to learn the language, to accept the opportunities, to get educated.
But why did you? I mean, you know what? I mean, so okay. Did you take the, did you become Danish or get a Danish passport, let's just say it that way? Mm-hmm. Was it for any other reason than what you're saying now about immersing yourself in the society? Was it for you just a process of kind of being part of society, or were there any other reasons for it? Because in a way you don't, as you've all, in a way you're, I'm not saying you're saying anything, but the way I understand it, you're saying it's all about having an open mind. It's all about your mindset or whatever. Mm-hmm. So the passport itself is really immaterial to how Danish you are, right? Yeah. So are there any other reasons why you wanted it?
So I didn't get kicked out of the country.
But that was never going to happen, mate.
Let's put it this way. When the politicians say all British people are protected, all right, because of Brexit. Yeah. And I thought, fair enough. Yeah. But I also thought, who knows? I got my whole life's over here now. Yeah. And all of a sudden they go, get out. Yeah. Not that I'm going to do anything wrong or silly or anything, but it was just kind of like a bit of insurance too.
Okay, yeah. Just, I mean, this is obviously not lecturing you. This is just in case you didn't know, because I obviously had the same sort of thoughts, right? Yeah. But I read that we would have been at least protected. Yeah. Not just, nothing to do with Europe, but by the UN, the human rights. Yeah. The fact that we've actually living here, working here, and have a family here means we're, but them actually, the police coming and removing us from our houses would break international convention on human rights. Yeah. So we were sort of, that it just wasn't going to happen. That's what I thought to myself. This ain't going to happen.
Seriously, I'm 100% agreeing with what you're saying there. I mean, but I just thought, Well, it was the final push.
Right.
I thought, and it was maybe me giving two fingers to what happened over in England or in Britain.
And what happens, Dave?
Well, it begins with Brex, and you know the rest.
And it ends with it.
Yes. So and
So you're not a fan?
Let's put it this way. On the morning of June the 23rd, or 23rd of June, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Right?
I can't exactly, but I think it sounds right, yeah.
I woke up and it was, of course, it was on Danish TV, live streams from the BBC.
Yeah.
And this, Mike, the words came across my head. My people need me. And just a sniff, and we're talking like the faintest whiff of,
yeah.
And I've got to go back. I've got to sort this out.
Did you?
Yeah.
You wanted to go back home?
No, I didn't want to go back home, but like I said...
Well, go back to the UK. Yeah. Okay.
The smallest of sniffs saying, these people obviously don't know what they're doing.
Nobody knew it. Yeah, see, again, that's quite interesting to me because that made me just sort of think, I'm so glad I'm here. Like, and I don't want anything to do with that at all. Like, nothing.
They need help. And I can go back and sort this out. Goodness, I mean, obviously it was only just that. But it just flashed across my mind, just the briefest of seconds thought, this is too outrageous.
But do you know, without, everything can be edited, right? So
yeah.
Do you know any British people in Denmark who would have perhaps voted to leave Europe?
I don't really know many British people anymore.
Okay, so you don't have that many British friends.
I know it's sort of like maybe a dozen at the most.
It doesn't. See, I know you.
All right, okay.
That's it.
Well, I mean, I can lie. Yeah, I'd vote. We'll cut that out. No, really, because...
Yeah, I don't, as I said, I mean, in a way, I'm kind of what you said at the start where, you know, what was that great word that we said it was about going out in groups? Diaspora. Like, you know, and I think I've said it on the podcast, so I can repeat it. I went to the pub, the Irish pub, and it just sounds terrible, but it's just how it was. The sorts of people that drank in the pub that were also English aren't basically the sort of people that I would have hung out with if I lived in England. And because I had maybe have the relationship to my country or whatever, maybe just the person that I am, I'm not like, okay, well, we both like football. We both speak the same language. We both got the same sort of culture. Therefore, let's be mates. There has to be, there has to be their values as people or their interests or things like that. So for me, the kinds of people that were here, and it sounds really snobbish, and it's probably because I am, but the kinds of people that were in the pub were, again, just not so. So it wasn't like, for me, and but I could see that also, amongst some of the Irish groups and also the English groups that was what sort of kept them together. You know, the pub, having a beer, talking about the footy, and the fact that a cup of tea, whatever. But for me, that just wasn't enough. So all my friends are Danish. There is no one I know here, apart from you, who is either English or British.
Okay.
No one. So out of the dozen, though, that you know, were any of them maybe on the fence?
I can't imagine they were.
So there's nothing you spoke about them?
Oh, I spoke to a couple and they were going like, well, they kind of think we could do this on our own. We could manage on our own.
Yeah.
But it certainly wasn't because of race. It wasn't the race.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there was also sovereignty, right? And the idea of England being this great nation, going back to the kind of empire days and the nostalgia element that, obviously isn't true, none of it, but there was that narrative and that was a big selling point. But because I know of people here who are British that actually thought Brexit was a great idea.
Okay.
And, for me, just the irony of them living in Denmark, being able to come here when they did, and getting a job and doing everything and getting a permanent opholdstilladelse, which is a permit to stay.
Residence permit.
Yeah, residence permit and stuff like that. And then voting so that other people who want to do that in the future are going to have a lot harder time of it. I just couldn't really see
No.
But Brexit is not something that you are sort of
No, I can't see the point of trying to exclude yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you're at a party and you decide to go drink outside. I mean, you're still drinking and that, but what's the point of that? You know. So
Brexit was the push to get the final push, maybe to get the passport.
I mean, even for a few years before that, maybe 5, 6, maybe even 10 years before that, I was saying, well, I would become a Danish citizen. I can't see why I wouldn't, but that was the kind of final, you know.
So you got your British passport. You see yourself as
Danish passport.
So you got your Danish passport. You don't really see yourself then as British or Danish. You are a sort of hybrid.
Well, I mean, as I said, well, I don't know. I just kind of got on, really. I don't really I mean, the only thing that really makes me want to go English is the football team, you know, and the rugby team, of course, even though I'm not a big rugby fan, but I do watch the World Cup.
But don't your colleagues mention it to you?
What? English?
Yeah. I mean, seriously, I wouldn't say teased about it because that's, that sounds a bit stupid. But yeah, I get told or reminded by my colleagues here at the place where we both work that I'm English. But that's because you're English or typisk Brit, just typical Brit, but with a smile, obviously. Sort of just sort of ribbing me or taking the piss as whatever. But that kind of thing is brought up about me quite a lot, and I don't know if it's because I project something. I don't know if it's a sort of but I hear just again, and it's all meaning and it's all with love and everything else. Yeah. But I hear about me being English often.
Okay. No, I must admit.
No one in your office or where you work or your colleagues around will sort of say, "Oh, Stacy, did you see that in the UK they're doing this?" Or "You might like this," or "You're English, so can you help us with this word?" Or there's nothing where your Englishness in some way has some kind of status.
I don't really think we think about it. We're too busy working. No, I don't know.
No, not even parties or just sort of social gatherings. There's nothing about.
I mean, it must come up, but I don't really kind of because in a way you project your English is much more.
Do I?
Your Englishness is much more pronounced than mine is.
In what sense would you say that? That's interesting. Not because it's about me, but the idea of...
You love it, mate.
Yeah, I love it, mate. No, but the idea of my Englishness, like what would you say that was?
I think it's your whole personality, Mike. You are... It's the London thing.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's the London...
Wanker, then, basically.
No. It's just that... Because I've known other London guys, right, in Denmark.
Right.
And they're also very...
London.
Large.
Okay. Large white boy.
Large, yeah. And that's fair enough. I mean, but if you're going to be large and urban as opposed to sort of just kind of a bloke, then I suppose you're going to attract more attention, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think that's interesting because maybe the idea that obviously indirectly I bring the attention to myself because I'm just being me, right? I mean, it's not like I'm thinking I'm going to have to go out and be typical Londoner because that's what people expect of me or whatever. It's just who I am. But if that then in turn would create the sort of banter, I suppose you could call it, where people may be taking the mick a little bit and winding me up about being English or just mentioning it or something, that's actually something I create. Because as you said, you don't get that. And that's quite interesting, I think.
I mean, I'll talk about things and slang and stuff in there. I mean, for example... my dear colleague who sits next to me, whose name he knows, came in whistling once.
Right.
And I said, you're on the fiddle, mate. All right. In English, you're on the fiddle.
Yeah.
And we're kind of, what does that mean? What does on the fiddle mean? Yeah. And I showed him the clip from the film Alfie with Michael Caine, where he's whistling and his superior, his boss, comes down and says, you must be on the fiddle whistling like that, or what, I'll pay you. I'll show you the clip later. And so
your cultural references you'll bring to the table, your sort of cultural British or American British references, you sort of yeah.
So that's where we use it for just add a bit of colour and a bit of spice.
Yeah. All right.
So
one of the podcasts the first podcast actually, the very first Forrin podcast was this idea of, I know it's just a word, but things are what you call them, right? So the idea of an expat and an immigrant. Yeah. Would you see yourself as, I mean, if you can kind of erase that discussion from your mind, I know you've listened to it, but did you see yourself, would you have called yourself an expat? Like 10 years ago or whatever, or 5 years ago? Or do you see yourself as an immigrant? Because British people, they're expats, right? That's what we call it. I mean,
well, they're referred to as expats. Unfortunately, if you hadn't mentioned the fact that the first podcast, because I do remember there was quite an interesting discussion about it.
Yeah.
Because an expat is seen, I'm an expat. Oh, yes. Where do you come from? Oh, yes, I've been over here.
Yeah.
And so on. Whereas an immigrant, doesn't suit you, sir.
No.
Right.
And it's not only to do with race as well. It's also got to do with sort of social status, like finance, how much money. The idea of being an immigrant is also sort of synonymous with some kind of sort of poverty and going to a country and maybe kind of taking that country's resources from them as an immigrant. But an expat, that just means you've kind of taken your kind of social status and your wealth with you, and you're just residing as a Brit in another country. Indeed. So it's not only race; it's also sort of social class.
Yeah, because I said to my friend 25, nearly 30 years ago on the phone, of course, I'm a foreigner over here. And he said very quickly, "You're not a foreigner, you're an Englishman."
Yeah.
Right? And
tongue in cheek.
Right?
Tongue in cheek.
Tongue in cheek, of course.
Yeah.
He would never,
But many a true word spoken in jest.
Well, yeah, he's certainly a jester, that's for sure. But no, am I an immigrant? I suppose I am an immigrant. I've emigrated from England and immigrated to Denmark. Yeah. There's one for my language students to remember the difference. Okay, I like that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm an immigrant. I'm not an expat because to be an expat, it just reminds you of bronzed older people living on the south coast of Spain. Really.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
who are now going
garçon.
Yeah.
Even though they're in Spain. Yeah,
indeed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So in that way, so I would be an immigrant, but that's not a bad thing.
No. But again, was it something that you thought about? Again, was there anything that you thought about, the idea that you're actually, when immigrants are spoken about in Denmark, which they are a lot.
Yeah.
And the whole kind of classification of being a non-Western and a Western immigrant.
Yeah. I did consider whether I was an expat or not, and I suppose I must be, but I've never really been into the idea of being a patriot because of the words of Samuel Johnson, which is patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. And I thought, I don't want to be a scoundrel, so then I can't be an expat, unless, of course, I'm being an ex-scoundrel. Maybe Denmark has done me good.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike.
Well, it's me that thanks you, man.
Well, I hope you can use it, or part of me hopes you can't.
No, we'll. Yeah. It's. I think that was really, really interesting.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to rack my brain right now if there's anything I haven't asked you, but I think we pretty much covered everything. Man. So thanks very much on behalf of Patrick and myself.
Yes, and say hello to Patrick.
I will do. And I see him. I see him sort of online, isn't it? But,
there you go.
But yeah, cheers, mate.
Cheers, my man. All right.
Nice one.
Have you stopped recording?
I have now.